Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and I am here to do the YZ tag created by Jim over at Books, Reading, and Stuff. Now, when I was a brand new booktuber, I used to do all of the alphabet tags when they came out and got them out on time. Unfortunately, life got in the way and I got out of the habit of doing those tags, even though I always liked them and I think they're great. And I always had this meaning to go back to them. Well, now that we are at the end of the alphabet, I want to make sure that I do the final tag in this series, just for some sake of completeness. So here we go. First prompt, Y is for YA, young adult. How would you rank the following popular YA books? The Fault of Our Stars by John Green, The Book Thief by Markus, Zusak, and The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Now, I have read 2 out of the 3 of those books. I have not read The Fault in Their Stars, and there's nothing on this planet short of putting a gun to my head that will get me to read The Fault in Our Stars. I am too old for young adult. It's just the fact. I don't know why some adults find it interesting to read books that are made for people much younger than themselves. I'm not one of those. If you've seen any of my videos before, you will know I absolutely loathe The Hunger Games. So by default, The Book Thief is the best of the 2 that I have read. I don't think it's a great book. And what's interesting is, outside of the United States, The Book Thief is not always classified as a young adult book. It is possible to have protagonists in a book that are below the age of 18 and not have it be young adult. The Lord of the Flies comes to mind, and so does A Clockwork Orange. But that's how I'd rank them. And a few countries begin with Y and Z, like Yugoslavia, Yemen, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Zaire. Have you read a book set in a place beginning with Y or Z, or by an author from a country beginning with Y or Z? I have read books by an author from Yugoslavia. I have one right here. The Dictionary of the Khazars by Milorad Pravec. And this was a very interesting book when it came out. It had 2 editions. It had the male edition and the female edition. And there is 1 paragraph difference between the books, and that changed the entire perspective of the book. Now, I own the male edition. I've owned this since it first came out in the 80s. In this book here, I have an insert that actually contains the text of the female edition. So if I reread this, I could technically read both editions. And he was an author from Yugoslavia. I have not read any books from an author beginning with a country of the letter Z. Y is for Yeats. Do you have a favorite Irish poet? I do not. I read some poetry, but not enough to declare a favorite poet from Ireland. Y is for YouTube. What channel do you like to watch apart from BookTube channels? I've mentioned this before. There is a table called Tico and the Man. It is a man playing a guitar, and he has a parrot named Tico. And the bird likes to sing along with the guitar playing. As I said before, I think that bird singing is actually much better than some of the original singers on these songs. It's a lot of fun. And what's really great is most of his videos are really short. So they're maybe 3 minutes long, so you can sit and watch the whole video and not take up a lot of time. A lot of fun. Z is for Zero. Have you read a book about nothing in particular? Actually, I have. It is called Nothing That Is, A Natural History of Zero by Robert Kaplan. And this is a mathematics book. about zero and how useful the number zero is, and how it is, let's just say, invented twice, discovered twice. I'm not sure how you'd classify that, invention or discovery. One was in the Arab world, and that's how it was mainly introduced to the Western countries. You know, when you had the Roman numerals, as Jim said in the original, very hard to do math in Roman numerals, but Arabic numerals is very easy. It was also discovered by the Mayans. So theory is that there was a genius in the Arabic world who discovered zero, and a genius in the Mayan world who discovered zero. And don't quibble about discover or invent, who knows? Z is for zombies. Do you have a favorite book about zombies or a zombie apocalypse? I don't. Oh, by the way, I'm writing a book about math. 5 out of 4 people struggle with math. Back to zombies. I don't read a lot about zombies. Last year, I read the novel by George Romero. It actually wasn't entirely written by George Romero. George Romero, if you don't know, is the director of Night of the Living Dead and some other zombie movies. The most famous director of zombie movies. It was an okay book. It was finished by another horror writer. I actually found the horror of how people treat each other much more frightening than the zombies in that book. And that's really about the only zombie book that I've ever read. And oddly enough, it was a book my wife bought. She couldn't really explain why she bought that book on Kindle, but she did. And after she read it, she convinced me to read it. It's not a bad book. It's nothing I'd highly recommend, though. Z is for Zootopia. Do you have a favorite book where the characters are animals, anthropomorphic or otherwise? I have not read a lot of books with animal characters. The most easy one I can think of is Call of the Wild by Jack London, where you have the dog Buck, very famous book. I also read his book White Fang, also about a dog. And those are the only 2 books about animals that I think of that I can read, that I've read, where the main character is an animal. Z is for Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance. What is the connection between Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance? Well, I have read this book. I read it twice. I read it in the early 90s and in the late 90s. The first time was in a paperback. The second time was an audiobook. There is a connection between the author's mind. It's a little vague in my memory because I read it so long ago, but it is a book well worth reading if you have not read it. Essentially, he comes to the conclusion that working on a motorcycle and repairing it is very much like doing a Zen koan. You know, leave it at that. Who knows? And bonus prompts. You have to do the bonus prompts. Y is for yellow. Do you have a favorite yellow book? And the answer to that is yes. I have a lot of favorite yellow books. Hold on while I turn the camera around. Can you see them over here? These are the Daw science fiction paperbacks that were so popular when I was in high school. These were great. No, they're great science fiction, but are great books. They aren't always great science fiction, but they're a lot of fun. And I remember thinking with Steve Donahue says, if you see a Daw paperback in a used bookstore, just grab it. Doesn't matter who the author is, just grab it. I don't know if I'd go that far, but they are the best yellow books ever written or ever published. Y is for year. Do you have a best reading year? Maybe the most books read or the best books read? That's kind of a curious idea. I do have a database of books that I have read, so I can give a lot of statistics about what I have read. The book, 2007 is the year I read the most amount of books. I read 210 books for a total of 47,017 pages, and the average page length between those books is 301. The next year, which I think would probably be the best year, even though it's not the most amount of books read, was 2018. I read 107 books for a total of 53,735 pages for an average length of 502 pages. So obviously I read a lot fewer books, but the books I read were a lot longer, but I read more. So we're going to call 2018 my best reading year. Y is for yacht. Do you have a favorite book about sailing? No. Y is for Yugoslavia. Have you read any books about the Yugoslavian Civil War? I did read a book by Peter Handke that featured the Yugoslavian Civil War. And Peter Handke got in a lot of trouble for that book because he did not condemn the tyrant of Yugoslavia. The name is on the tip of my tongue and I'm going to mispronounce it, so I'm not going to do it. I also read a novel by a young woman who did feature the Yugoslavian Civil War. And I can't remember the title or author. I will leave it in the notes below. It is a very decent book. There is also a novella in a collection of short stories by William T. Vollmann. And we will turn that over again. Down there. And last stories. And the first story features a struggle in the former Yugoslavia. A story what was called the Romeo and Juliet of Yugoslavia, where a Serb fell in love with a Bosnian and things did not go well. Z, wasn't on the camera. Z is for Roger Zelazny. Do you have a favorite book by Roger Zelazny? Roger Zelazny is right there. Book of Amber. I read the first books of Amber when I was in high school, and I absolutely loved them. I was actually in a contest with a fellow student named Victor, and we were trying to see who could finish the series first. And I was on the last book, was it In the Courts of Chaos, I believe was the name. And I was halfway through, and being a friend, Victor came over to my house to do dumb kid stuff. And afterwards, I could not find my copy of the last book in that series. And so I suspected Victor took it so he could be the first to read it. So I very much doubt that Victor watches this channel. And I know it's been more than 40 years, but I have a question for Victor. Did you steal my copy of In the Courts of Chaos by Roger Zelazny? If you're there, just put it in the comments. I don't care anymore. Z is for zzz. Do you get enough sleep? For the most part, I do get enough sleep. I'm retired. I can go to bed when I want to and get up when I want to. For the most part, I go to bed about 20 minutes to 30 minutes after my wife goes to bed and get up at the same time. So maybe I'm a little short on the 8 hours, but not much. And I can take naps in the afternoon. There is nothing better than an afternoon nap. So that is the end of the Y to Z tag and the end of the alphabet tag, I think. I don't know what Jim's up to. They've been great. Thank you so much, Jim, for creating these tags. They have been my favorite tags. I kind of wish I had done them all, but, life does get in the way. Thank you for watching, and have a good night.